band of fearless friends here tonight, and I'm really excited. And I will give up any illusion that I have any control right from the get-go, because believe me, after flying with this group, there is nobody in control. Well, I'm not in control, that's for sure. So anyway, we do want to welcome you all. We do this every week for people who are afraid to fly, people who know somebody's afraid to fly, and people who just like hanging out and talking about airplanes a little bit. So I'll make a quick reminder. We do have our Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather Facebook group. We encourage you to join and participate in that. We're pushing up towards 1,000 now and getting bigger and stronger. And I thank everybody who's joined and for the participation on there. How many of you all, just out of curiosity, I'll introduce everybody. Okay, so this is our Boston. No, our BWI for lunch bunch. Okay, so we went out. This is the second group of flyers, the people that took the Clear for Takeoff 201 online course in February, and I went out. I flew out to Boston over the weekend, and we all flew from Boston to Baltimore, and got a little bit to eat down there, and turned around and came back. And so we're going to just talk to them in general about their experience, and for the group here. What I'll do is I'll throw out a question, and then and I'll just let people comment, so I won't say Kristen, and you'll feel like you're under the gun and you're in an interrogation. I don't want that. I want that to be kind of fun and whatever. So, and kind of as a context for this is in the past, Eric and Diane and Dieter and I, when we did classes where it culminated in a flight, it was a big logistical thing. We would go either over to the LA area or here in Phoenix, and we would end up getting a hotel room. And in the morning, we would cram about 5 hours worth of content into the class. And then those adventuresome people who had purchased a ticket as much as a month in advance, wondering why they were purchasing a ticket when they hadn't even taken the course yet, who wanted to, then went to fly with us on the same day. It was a long day, and certainly not as much opportunity to take in content and absorb it, think about it, and then ask questions. So the pandemic, of course, changed that. So we didn't do any classes for a year. We did one basic online class. First of all, nobody was interested in flying during the pandemic. But anyway, so the folks on the screen tonight are the folks that have taken the third iteration that Dieter and we've been making slight little tweaks to it. So they went through the class online in February, and then they were brave enough to sign up. And then I went out to Boston and flew back with them. So I'm interested in getting feedback from them, as well as just, how their experience and sharing with you what their experience was and as far as fear of flying and then moving forward through the flight. We are now in the process of making one last little tweak, and that is we're gonna make an open enrollment. So the course, the 201 course now, since all the content is already up in the cloud, people will be able to sign on to the class and take it as this class did all together. And then we will have, and we'll look at a time period over more like 90 days rather than 30 days. And that way we'll have webinars at least once a month, where people can do the same thing that these folks did, but it'll be less compressed, and hopefully it'll work out better. And then I will continue to fly, because it was such a resounding success to go to Boston. I will continue to fly in other cities around the country, because I think the real benefit comes if you have the motivation and the resources to go fly right afterwards. I think that's where you put it all together, and you really get transformed.
And so, I can already tell, we got in the Facebook comments, so people who would love to fly in Atlanta, or love to fly in New York City. So yeah, that's the whole goal, that we can deliver the information at a pace that's good for you, the learner, the student, and we still have live webinars with us once a month, where you can get your question answered after diving into the material, because I think, and that's one of the questions that I'm sure we'll be asking all of you, just how it helped to have that new student portal where all the information is already there. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So,
just let
oh, go
you
ahead, Peter.
ask the questions, Ron.
Yeah, well, I'll start out and feel free to join. You know, just for everybody out there, what prompted you all to take the 201? You know, and maybe that's part of a sub part of a more general question. Why now? And I asked some of the people I interviewed, you know, well, obviously, you know, you had some desire in overcoming your fear flying, but what was the why, you know, for right now that you did this? You know, if anybody can jump in there and say, you know, what motivated you to do that at this particular time in your life? So, okay, not everybody at once. Okay.
Well, I know for me, the time was right now because my kids are getting older. So
Okay.
their birthday's coming up in May, and we thought I have to take them somewhere. So it was time to do it. And finally, COVID's a little bit better now and things are opening up. So, and then this course I found out, and best thing I ever did in my life. So
Okay,
that's why
thanks.
that was mine. It was my kids.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead, Lauren.
It's kind of the same for me. I hit 10 years of not flying. And yeah, same thing. My son is in first grade. He says everyone in his class has been to Disney except for him. So he was asking me about 3 times a week when we're going to Disney, telling me that he would hold my hand. He's 6. And it just was time. I just was missing out on trips that people were inviting me on. My cousins went on a trip to Florida a few months ago. I didn't go. So it was just starting to get heavier. Like I couldn't avoid it anymore. It was time.
And it's a good thing you did it before your 6-year-old retained an attorney, because then it probably would have been too late.
Way too expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, very.
Okay, Susan, I'm going to prompt you because you had one of the best stories there. You are the new record holder for the longest time that someone has not flown.
Yeah, 50 years.
50. Yeah.
50. Why did I wait so long? I feel like a demon has been lifted off of me. I've been carrying this around for 50 years. Why?
Yeah.
Out of fear, and there's no reason.
And I've heard that over and over the years, and people just, you know, it's hard to imagine when you're on the other side of this, where you're still apprehensive about flying, how one of the first reactions is, you know, wow, I didn't think it was going to be this easy sometimes, or you know, I'm you know, regretful, or you know, a little bit regretful that I waited so long. John McBurdy out of LA, he was 47. He was brief record holder before you came along, Susan. So he was in there less than a year. The earlier person was like 45 years. So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Well, it's just congratulations to you and congratulations to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway. Susan, how about you?
You know, I think I'm in it for the long game on this one. I spoke to you a couple of years ago when I could talk to you, you know, for the Facebook thing, and listening on Tuesday nights. But that's when my sister passed when she was 50, and her grandchildren asked me to go to Florida. She never met them. They, you know, and yeah. I did it for them. I mean, that's where I mustered up the courage. And I remember crying to you the night before. I wasn't going to go. I said, you know, they're young. They'll forget about it. And I went, and then, you know, I just have to keep doing it. But this time, you know, I had the harmonizer on, and when I started to panic, I could hear the words saying, you know, you saying, you know, it's the way you think about it. You have to retrain your brain. And I started thinking, you know, I had my notebook out. Was I going to start writing with my left hand? And then you're right. Your brain gets occupied with something else. And I was worried about Sue, because I've known Sue since I've known you for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of helped, worrying about
Yeah,
her. But
yeah.
I just need to keep doing it and keep doing it, and it just gets better. But the anticipatory anxiety is what gets me mostly.
One of the things that I notice is if I were to invite 6 people to go to meet me at the airport, and they were total strangers or had never met face to face before, when you get there would be a representative amount of time where there would be the warm up phase where everybody's kind of cautious, and things like that. And when I met, who did I see first? Susan, probably you and the two Susans.
Yeah,
I saw
me and
first,
Sue. Yeah.
And of course, each other and stuff like that. But even so, there's a little bit of guardedness and all that. But the thing that's amazing when you fly with classes of people who were afraid to fly is that within seconds, everybody is like, instead of being there with a crowd of strangers on an airplane, and you're thinking you're the only one out there that thinks like this, and wow, if they knew what I was thinking, they'd probably get the tough cuffs out right away, and when you go with a group of people, even though we were really outmanned, right? I mean, there were only 6 of us and there's a whole airplane full of people, and both flights were packed, you just see people just immediately bond and
Well, this sounds corny,
yeah.
but Kristen turned when she and Michael got the first 2 seats, and
Right.
she turned and she looked at me and she gave me the thumbs up, and I got this warm, fuzzy feeling. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it was kind of, it was like, oh, somebody else is on the plane. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, Susan,
That's it.
you said it during one of the classes. You and I were both worried about that initial getting on the plane, that first part, and that's the hardest part. And that's why I looked at you and I'm like, we're on. Like,
We're
all
on.
right,
We're here.
we're
Yeah.
already here.
Yeah.
That's why that was that feeling. Like,
Yeah.
God.
And we had
Yeah.
this agreement where we were going to sit, and I had it organized, which is unusual for me in the first place. And so I get on, well, first was Kristen and Michael, and they jumped on the first row because it's got extra space in front of the bulkhead there. So I'm like, I felt rejected totally. It was a traumatic moment for me, And then they turned around with thumbs up. I'm like, well, geez, excuse me for bringing you along, Obviously didn't need anybody. It was so cool. And that was the theme for the flight. But you that was a good point, Susan, is that you do feel a connection with people, which you don't have when you're even with family. If people aren't there that you perceive know what it's like to be you and anxious on an airplane, it's a totally different world, and that's why I think people ultimately get off the airplane, because they feel so out of place, and it's just amazing.
Ron, where did you change the tire at the gate, in Boston or Bewey?
That was I believe on Boston, wasn't it? Before we.
No, it was Baltimore.
Yeah, well, I was sleeping.
You're not going to blame it on Boston.
Yeah,
You're not blaming that on Boston. We have huge potholes. We know how to drive.
I can vouch for that.
So anyway, all right. So let's talk a little bit about the 201 class for people out there who are wondering, how do I get from here to here? Okay. So if in the way I've worded this is, in the 201 class, what worked for you? What would you like more of? Maybe, thinking back on the classes, both your own access to the portal, and I'll ask you about that in just a minute, versus when we did the webinars, or just in general, what was helpful in that you might, and if I could do more of it, and what was, didn't work as well. And I promise I won't cry. Okay, go ahead, Michael.
I'm just going to say that I think connecting with people in the webinars was so helpful. I don't know if anyone else is in this situation who's listening, but for me, the fear of flying was something only 4 or 5 people knew about. Like, my family doesn't know it. My friends don't know it. They just think that I'm not traveling. And so to go, and I've been stuck driving everywhere. So, but to go and actually up front, just talk to somebody else, and they say, like, I have this crazy fear and you have this crazy fear, and you just bond over it. And immediately it's just like, that's a huge weight off your shoulders, just to say, like, You're afraid of a plane crashing. I'm afraid of having a panic attack. Like, cool, we got it. We're on the same page. Now let's talk through other things. Like, it's just such a relief to be with people who understand and are not going to judge you for what you're dealing with.
I appreciate that feedback, and we started to pick up on that, this being the third online version that we did, because I was at first afraid that if I put people in breakout rooms, one-on-one, that they'd be like two people staring at each other's TV screens, and like, no, but that wasn't the case. People, even after the first week, I got the sense, hey, we need to do more of that where people can interact. And
I would have liked more breakout rooms.
Yeah. Okay. And that's it. Because when we used to do this live, oh my God, people, the minute that I would do an ice-breaking activity to get people a little bit more comfortable, holy cow, you couldn't, you lost control of the room because people were just so relieved to find others out there that were in the same boat with them. And so I will take that even more to heart than we have in the past, and do more of that.
The breakout rooms make sense because that way you get to know the people you're going to saddle up with on that first flight better. I guess that makes complete sense.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And Dieter, did you plan it so we were with other Boston people in the breakout rooms?
I did my best. I mean,
Oh no, it worked out really well. I'm like, wow, this is because I was with Lauren. Like it was nice to see a familiar face, and then at the airport, it was like, my God, I feel like I know them, from talking with them. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
It personalized it really well. So that was great.
Yeah, and there is the ability to do that in Zoom, and the problem is if the people you have paired up, because you got to do it in advance, if they don't show up, then you got to do some tap dancing to get them around there. But I could see where that would be a real advantage to have people in that area.
I have a question about because it's really the first time that we had additional information up on the student portal. So. Because I think all of you, and that's part of the success too, is actually showing up, and showing up for the live classes and being there.
Yeah.
But did you find that the extra resources or other videos, did you, any of you watch any of these extra?
Yeah. I went to, of course, we're all familiar with Castle Island. And I went to Castle Island with my laptop. And Logan Airport is right there. So, sorry. Logan Airport is right there. So I would sit and watch the videos as the planes were going over me. And, in the car. And I just had my headphones in, and I loved that. One right after the other.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And we will be, I mean, you still have access to all that stuff, and we will be adding more and more. And one of the things that we had for you guys that I didn't have for the other two classes prior to this was we had a limited ability where I would interview some people and we'd have some of the past activities, but we had more people that were able to be posted up there. So you could look at other people, when I did the 15-minute interviews with them and just get a feel for what their history was. Because again, I was trying to, in some ways, replicate what goes on in the face-to-face experiences, where you get to hear people's stories and whatnot there. So is that an overall plus to have information in the portal? Was it, okay. And how about and then the webinars, we kind of got feedback on that especially with the breakout room activities, but I'm definitely going to continue that. And in your class, what I did the other classes, Eric and I, we'd have a, I think I did this on maybe the first class, but we had a much more formalized group of slides and stuff like that. And I'm, now, Eric and I are going to do that, put it up on the portal so you can access that on your own, and then you can come to class and you can get, you can ask questions based on that, because otherwise we end up doing most of the talking in the damn thing, and you never get to ask us. And to me, that's the real value that Eric and I and Diane have seen in the classroom activities or classroom versions as well, where people can ask things about that. The kind of last thing related to this, and then we'll just banter about what the flight was like. Did you feel prepared for the flight? And if so, was there, give me some specifics. Because if I'm out there and I'm watching you guys, the the typical reaction from somebody who's new in this, getting over it, is, yeah, but they weren't as bad as I was. Did any of you ever think that, as you listened to us before, oh yeah, no, I'm not impressed because nobody knows what I'm going through? Is that pretty common? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is, did you feel prepared for the flight? And, and can you remember some things in particular that you knew then before that flight that you didn't know about or think about beforehand? Okay. Yeah, Michael.
So I'm going to say that I did the course in like a really condensed version. I was so afraid of getting into the material that I did it all like the week of. So first of all, don't recommend that. Second of all, I would say that one of the speakers, I forget her name. She's a lawyer, or she was a lawyer.
Yeah,
She's a
her name is
nonprofit.
Anne Gray, and she went
Yep,
through a past class, right?
That was listening to her speak was so transformative. And she said something that I thought really stuck with me. She said, preparation trumps panic. And so
Yeah.
I took that to heart. Like the night before, I was creating these note cards for myself, like things I could do when I start feeling panic, deep breathing, math problems, listening to music, listening to the harmonizer, whatever it is that you need to do. And really just to flip through those. And it worked, in the moment.
Yeah.
I really said to myself, like, I am feeling a little anxious. Like, what can I do? We're sitting on the runway waiting to take off. What's a good strategy here? So I really, really think that was key, is being prepared to go.
And that is what I found. It's so hard to, first of all, it took me a long time to figure out what does work with people. But the thing is, in general, if you just expose yourself to a lot of stuff, you never know what's going to stick, right? It's kind of like school in a way. And I remember people saying, why do I need algebra? When am I going to use that or something? Well, sometime later in your life, you think, I can see why I might have needed to know algebra or something. But that's why I say, and everybody, even though there's some common themes, everybody is unique in the way that their fear manifests in their life. So having a whole bunch of stuff so that you can, kind of get a sense, if you do it a little bit in advance and practice away from the airplane, now you can have some things, okay, I'll try this, this, and this. Otherwise, if you go in and you don't do anything, all that happens is you get in the same old rut. And as soon as your anxiety even burbles up 1 or 2 points on a scale of 1 to 10, you're screwed, because now you don't have any resilience. You don't have anywhere to go to, if you hit a bump that you weren't expecting, things like that. So I really appreciate that.
And Ron and Diane and Dieter and I never prepare for one of these at the last minute, ever.
I will say,
You're just a bad person, Michael. That's
I
all.
want it to come across as being very spontaneous.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
chaotic.
Says,
One of the two.
you're still on time. Last minute is still on time, Michael. So
Yeah.
One thing I have to admit, at this time,
Yeah.
on this particular flight, I think I've been listening to you guys so much that at different times, like when I needed to take a deep breath or something was going on, I would hear Eric saying, this is why that's happening. Or when Dita said to me, you just have to put one foot in front of the other. Or something, with the harmonizer. I started with the harmonizer and then I'm like, I am not listening to this thing. And I changed and I put that meditation thing on that you do, that I go to sleep to now every night, Ron. I don't even know what the middle of it is.
Tell me what that was.
Sleep.
When you say that meditation, tell me what that was, because I couldn't remember what you were, or didn't know what you were talking about.
It's the meditation thing. You start by saying, take a nice deep breath, and doesn't matter how you take a deep breath. And maybe you're going to do this while you have your dog, and you're going on and on. And
Okay.
I don't even know what the middle of it is because I'm out cold.
Okay, is that in the thing we call?
It's in the portal.
Yeah.
Is that the PMP 101 thing? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And I want to hear from Lauren. You had your hand up, so I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about being prepared. I was so prepared. I had my adult coloring book with inspirational messages and my markers. I thought I had the harmonizer downloaded on the iPad with the ear pods, and my anxiety immediately went to a 9 as we were approaching the runway at takeoff. because I couldn't get we had no Wi-Fi. I couldn't get it to work. And I was in a panic because that was what I was going to listen to as we took off. And Captain Ron was sitting next to me. I had my husband on one side and Captain Ron on the other side. I was a Lauren sandwich. And Captain Ron was trying to eat his breakfast. And he says, here, take my phone, take my headphones. I already have it on there. And I had his phone for like at least a half hour with the headphones. And anyway, I went from a 9 to a 2 within about a half hour because I just was like, I can do this. I can soar. The time is now. And I just got into the mindset, and that was so helpful. I thought I was so prepared, and then everything came crashing down so quickly. So thank you, Captain Ron.
Oh, you're welcome. And I was closer to you than the other people. Not that I liked you better, but anything else. But anyway, so I noticed more about you. But I would say you had one of the more larger challenges there in terms of where you started out and where you got to, and you really did it. It was remarkable. And again,
yeah,
I say this all the time, but I'm watching from the outside. I see people in some level of emotional disarray, and by the time we're airborne, it's virtually gone. And that's why I say I think the real issue with most of you is you just didn't get enough attention in your life, and no, I'm just kidding, but it is amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing to watch, and that's why I love doing this, because you watch people really with raw courage, just literally, as Dieter said, putting one foot in front of the other, despite the fact, I know some of you were at least had the thought that you could get off that thing before we pushed back and all that. So it was really amazing. So
Ron, were there any sleepers? Were there any sleepers on leg 2?
I don't know. I was the only one.
I think Kristen dozed off.
I dozed.
Good job.
I fell off. I fell asleep. When we landed, I woke up.
I wish I could have been there to help you all.
Very good.
Hey, if Eric and I would have been landing that airplane, you would have continued to sleep through the landing. Let me tell you.
That was a pretty. That was
It's called putting mindfulness to practice.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. So anyway.
I have one question, if I could.
What's that?
I have one question. The turbulence that we experienced, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate that?
The largest amplitude and all that, I would say maybe a 4, maybe.
Oh, so it can
4
get
or 5.
worse.
Yeah, between. Yeah.
It seemed like a lot. It was a lot.
Never mind. No, it was, yeah. It's now, but see, that's me for you. That's why I say it, and when people ask me, where's the best place to sit in the airplane for turbulence? So, well, generally, I'll say the wings forward or something like that. You don't get as much of the up and down and the sideways as you do in the back. But the answer you want me, at least the image of the answer that you want me to say is sit in the front because there's nothing, and it doesn't, it's not like that. Even if you could sit in the front and then move to the back, you probably wouldn't notice that much of a difference, but it helps. Why does it help to tell people it's a little bit better in the front and the back? Because you now tell yourself a different story, and so that's the risk when you ask me, where would you rate that, Ron? And then I say, and you're hoping I'll say that was a 15 on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah,
you're hoping that that's it, because it'll always be less. And when I come out with a 4 or 5, you say, oh, yeah. So
it
that's
didn't
why
really bother me though.
So that's why the focus of Fearless Flight is to teach you how to regain control of your attention, not to worry about how bad the turbulence is, right? Because I guarantee you, there are some people on that airplane, other than me and Eric and Diane and Dieter, that when you're in turbulence like that, it's not that they don't notice it, but it's like having your kids playing, and making a lot of noise, and you're watching something on TV, and you don't even know, you don't hear the noise, and that's what happiness is. That's what Fearless Flight is all about. It's about.
Well, Ron, you're getting quoted from a 6-year-old little girl.
I love
My
that.
niece. I
That's
told
because
you.
that's because I'm on the same intellectual level with her.
She just snapped her brother back into place on a very
Oh.
bumpy ride from Florida
Oh,
when
you
there
gotta
was
tell that-
turbulence in her
You gotta tell
father.
that.
He
You gotta
said,
tell that story.
yeah, Braden said to my nephew,
These are your nieces and nephews, right?
it's my great niece and nephew.
Oh, great. Okay,
So
and they've been
he's,
following great Auntie Susan, right?
yeah, so he's 8 and she's 6, and he's a little bit more reserved than she is.
Yeah.
And my nephew Michael was in between them. And when the turbulence started, Braden went, "Daddy, what's that?" And Avery just whipped around and said, "Braden, Auntie's friend, Captain Ron, said it's just like speed bumps on the road." I mean, that was it. And he went, "Okay." And that was it.
Need to get that. If you give me a testimonial on that, we will put it.
I know, right? They tried to videotape it half too fast.
Yeah, that's right. And what was her name?
Her name is Avery.
Avery. And so we will say Avery says.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sure. Yeah. So we had the full array too. I mean, so this was not your easy flight to do from that point of view. First of all, all over the whole nation gets paranoid now if there's a thunderstorm somewhere in the country. And so there was a lead up in the media. I know some of you said, what about the weather coming up here, Ron? And even that morning when I walked out of the hotel, you couldn't see across the parking lot. There was some fog and stuff. And so we went to the airport, and it certainly wasn't a clear, cloudless sky at all. And so my sense was that, that was at least somewhere in your conscious awareness then. And then we got out there and we were delayed and the problems somewhere else, wherever the Southwest airplanes were coming from, caused us to be delayed both on the departure to BWI. And then it was BWI. Was that where I flew 4 times that day, so I can't remember, but was that where we were waiting on a crew? We were waiting on flight attendant, the first flight attendant. Yeah. Out of Boston. And then when I got to Denver later that night going home, we had to wait on the first officer to catch up. But anyway, so we had delays. You guys, and that's probably one of the more noticeable things is during the delay, if people are sitting there by themselves, sometimes they want to, they finally got to where they can accept they're going to fly, and then they get delayed either at the gate, on the taxiway before you're waiting for takeoff, on the runway or whatever. And then the fear starts up again, because you were biased to think something is wrong, right? But you guys did fine, because we had our own little group. We didn't care what the hell the world was doing. We were just in our own little world there. And the social part of the flights is absolutely, I think, the primary reason why people do so well on it. And then when we were out there, we did get de-iced before we left Boston. We got de-iced before we.
No, Baltimore.
No, it was Baltimore coming back. Yeah, I forget again because I got de-iced in Midway coming out. So
anyway. In
anyway.
Baltimore, they needed the pilot.
Yep.
One of the pilots was late. They changed the tire. They de-iced. We were waiting for all these different things, and we were all fine. We were all fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was it was 45 minutes to an hour after we pushed back before we ever got airborne. Yeah. And plus traffic was slower because they were down to limited arrival and departure numbers out there. But yeah. And then we had turbulence, a perfect flight from my point of view. a little of something. And to see you guys smiling there's no substitute for that. Again, when Kristen and Michael, when you go back and you go, thumbs up, that was absolutely it. I tell you, I am so out of a job with you guys. It's crushing, So you do.
No, we'll always need you.
What's that?
We'll always need you.
I appreciate that. So anyway, any other things you want to share? Words of wisdom to anybody out there? And then
I have a question for Michael.
Okay.
Michael, you said that no one knew. Your family didn't know. Are they aware of the fear now or your experience? No, not less than
no, they're not. They're aware that I flew, and they think that's fantastic, but they have no idea how meaningful it was.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And what you
Did
went through to
any of
get
you
there.
guys, anybody say to you guys, are you cured?
What's that?
Did anyone say to the Boston crowd, are you cured of your fear of flying?
I feel like the excitement isn't as much as I was hoping, because they're all kind of like, we knew you could do it. You're so strong. We knew you could do it. And I'm like, guys, you don't even know what I've been living. Like, you all just assumed it's going to be a great day. And now I'm like planning trips and looking at flights, and they're like, oh, like, it's kind of forgotten about, but it's in my brain. It's literally thought about 24 hours a day because I'm so excited. And I'm like, keep reliving the day, and I keep thinking about what's to come, and everyone else is just kind of going above they're just about their regular day. So when I talk to these guys, they still are living it. Like, I'm so excited still. I wake up thrilled, just like it's done.
Yeah, you kind of wake up like a big girl.
You wake up like, okay, that something is different. Yeah, it's just, and you know, and no one really gets it. You guys get it, but they're just kind of like, yeah, it's fine. Okay.
Lauren's nodding her head. Lauren, did your family go, so you're cured now, or something like that? I saw you agreed to that right away.
A few people asked. I said I'm about 80% cured. And I was just going to say it was such a transformation on the way home, even with the de-icing and the tire and the delays. Once we got up in the clouds, I had the window seat and I opened the shade and it was all blue skies and clouds. And I wasn't claustrophobic and I wasn't anxious, and I enjoyed the view, and I just took it in, and I just felt like all the anxiety just kind of went away. It was pretty amazing. And I actually really enjoyed the last half hour. I almost wish the flight was longer, which sounds crazy, but I would have enjoyed it like another half hour to an hour. It was really beautiful up there.
Yeah.
And I really want to.
I will ask one more.
Let me just comment on Kristen, just because there was also a comment on the Facebook. What you said, I wholeheartedly kind of like encourage all of you to relive that flight as much and as often, in as much vivid detail, because you are literally grooving these new grooves in your neural network. And you know, for most of us, we don't fly that often. So, but as you are storing that in there, and I know that sounds weird, but really relive that, like you said, Lauren. You know, I opened with the window shade, and it was that feeling of expansion rather that feeling of, you know, wow. And the more you can really embody that, you know, going back there, the more it'll actually be there the next time when you actually are flying, and things will come up, right? And now you can literally have that as a resource, an inner resource that you take on your next flight. And so I highly encourage that. And there was a comment also on the
right. Yeah. And it goes back to, I'm sorry, but the first class, and I keep bringing it up to you guys, but you sold me on this class when Captain Ron, you said, rewrite your story, that first class. And you said you have to rewrite it. And I wrote it on a piece of paper and it's framed. I have it in my house, because that's when I started, instead of playing, okay, now I'm going to go down there and starting the panic of the thought of this flight, I started planning and rewriting how that day was going to be. And when we were going to the plane, I had the new thoughts in my head, like, my kids are with me, we're going to Florida. Like, I did everything you taught me. And that, I think, is what got me through this, because I had that panic attack 14 years ago, stuck on the runway. And when it happened this time, I already rewrote that story in my head. Like, wow, I can really feel there's a lot of air this time. It's different. And I lived it. And I sat there and I'm like, okay, I already lived this, because I've been telling myself this for a month, and the panic didn't come. So it's amazing. So Dieter, you're right, that this flight is my new story. And that's what I'm going to keep to you every day. I'm going to keep living it. That's what you have to do, because for 14 years, I've been living the other panic attack story, which you have to, you know, and I know takes practice, and you just have to keep practicing it. But that was the best thing you ever said. And I will take those words to my grave. Rewrite your story, because you can. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
The thing about life is everything happens, you know, matter of factly from day to day to day. And it's insidious the way we change our beliefs and our values. And so we don't even realize that we're stuck in our story sometimes, you know. And that happens in relationships, in, you know, fear of flying, and a lot of things like. One of the things I wanted to do, I had a couple of really powerful coaching calls today, and it just stuck me with, you know, the people that you know, we've talked about. There's two kind of spheres of fear of flying. One is related to more fear about the mechanics of the airplane, you know, being safe and all the parameters that go in that. And the other one is the confinement and the claustrophobic qualities, and the, you know, both lack, you know, control, but the one with the claustrophobia. So Susan, I'll start with you. Were you more one than the other? Were you more about the, you know, and you don't have to be, there's no right answer, but, you know, was claustrophobia, was that a bigger issue for you, or just flying in general? You know, the
Which Susan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Susan, our Italian Susan.
That would be me. Mine was the claustrophobia. I don't care
Okay.
what you do to run the plane. Just do it.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. All right. Lauren, how about you?
Same for me. I trust that the plane will run smooth. It's more the claustrophobia height.
Yeah. So, Susan, how about you? Susan Hopkins.
Claustrophobia.
Claustrophobia. Michael?
Yeah, claustrophobia, 100%.
Yeah. And Kristen?
100% claustrophobia.
And-
Can't breathe.
And I, you know, I have evolved in 35 years, because at least my awareness was that 35 years ago, more people were worried about the mechanics of that. But whether it's the times, the world, you know, all the pressures and stuff like that. But, you know, and I'm going to change my estimate. I'm going to say it's about 90%, you know, of the people that I see are more concerned that just the lack of control that you have, whether it's.
But you said something. You said something so profound. You said that you can't stay in that heightened panic state for, you know, 25 minutes, and then
Right.
you also said you can handle anything for 2 or 3 minutes.
Sure.
And when the fear started to come into me with the tire changing, that it started to. I felt myself starting to, you know, get panicky, and I just said, I did some breathing, and I remembered you saying, I can do this for a couple of minutes. And then you just changed the thought process.
Yeah, I think that's where I fell asleep.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, and I was sitting right there, so you knew I was really supporting you there when I was completely.
I looked over, and you're literally with your mask on, your head's down.
I know. It's a dirty, thankless job, but somebody has to do it. And in Eric's absence, I felt obligated.
I'm glad you did it, but I can't laugh. But number two, that's a long ways to go to work, and you got a pretty good time shift going. So
Yeah.
you're going like a madman.
And
Days.
and they're not even needing me. You know, I mean, not just from Baltimore, but all the way from Boston. It was like I was worthless as certain anatomies on a pig. You know,
You really weren't. I mean, I was
Oh,
singing
my
"Love
God.
Is in the Air" from 4 o'clock that morning.
I know.
If you understood, the second I walked into that airport and saw you, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this is fine. And I did see you sleeping, and I almost took a picture, but I got to tell you, I loved it because it was
I
like,
have the picture.
it calmed me. I
you know,
turned around and it kind of made me laugh, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like, and then I
Yeah.
just put the harmonizer back on and fell asleep myself.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I mean, God, we wouldn't have been there without you. Are you kidding me? Just seeing you was like,
Yeah.
this
I think the
calming
caption
presence.
will be earning my pay. You know.
Yeah, you definitely did. Believe me.
Yeah. But anyway, and I have a fellow that does the editing for us, and as soon as I get all of the pictures and the video and stuff like that, he will do a really nice job, and we'll have something to show for it. So.
Oh, there.
That's a good picture.
That
That's
is
a
good.
great picture.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So anyway, well, I can't say enough about you, to you, with you, for you. It was just a total hoot flying with you guys over the weekend.
I say the Boston crew and you guys, Ron, Dieter, Diane, Eric, get that pad down. I think we all need to go to Italy. I'm there.
You know,
I love it.
that's one of our visions. It was to organize a trip to Europe somewhere.
Wow.
So,
For
yeah.
that, I would quit flying because it's hard for me to get that much vacation. But I would do that.
yeah. So anyway, so any final words of wisdom? I thank you so much for first trusting us, and then second, coming up tonight and showing up. It's just
Well,
been great.
thank you for being there for us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's
You're
the
welcome.
best decision I've ever made. Thank you.
That's
You
Thank you
changed
for
my
the
life. You changed
information.
my life. Thank you.
Congratulations, you guys.
Thank you.
And so what?
Thank
And so
you.
when I say that you are my heroes, I am speaking exactly from my heart, because you do not have to get on an airplane, no matter what anybody says, ever in your life. So for you guys to do that, it takes real courage to do that. And you guys know more than anybody else what that means to do that. Even as we were going up to the, starting our flight in Boston there. Michael, do you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I know it might seem kind of corny and silly, but like, honestly, getting the certificate from Ron that you flew and that you've somewhat conquered your fear of flying, I think that, and like, honestly, just the people in the airport, like, who were kind of looking at us and like, they seemed so inspired by what we had done, that really made it all worth it. I mean, I woke up like 4 times the night before. I was scared shitless. And
that's the technical term for it.
and I was literally like, I'm just gonna go to the airport, see what happens, like, and then the relief that you feel, and just like the happiness of seeing everyone else in the group with you, it was so awesome. I mean, it's so great to see everyone just smiling at the end.
Yeah,
Great.
But you did it because you showed up. You felt the fear, you felt the anxiety, and you put that one step in front of the next.
No, I think that's exactly the point. Like, I think you will, like, you're very likely to feel that fear. Just stick with your plan. You'll do fine.
Yeah. And I say, just keep it up. You don't have to immerse yourself every day. If you got a flight coming up in 6 months, about 2 to 3 to 4 weeks out, you just start reviewing some notes that you might have taken, stuff like that. And you can kind of get yourself into that. And, and you guys know where we live, so you can always get a hold of us for support. But
yeah, we do.
Yeah, I know.
And now you'd even fly there, Susan.
Yeah. I'll be knocking at your door.
By August, it'll warm up and you won't have to de-ice. I'm thinking your weather will improve.
There you go. So anyway, so thanks to you all. Thanks to everybody out there that might have tuned in and watched this fun time for me. Thanks for having confidence in Fearless Flight, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
all of
guys.
you.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.